Welcome to Chilling Ghost Stories, where the scariest tales come to life in the dead of night. Tonight, we venture into the eerie legends of Thailand, a land haunted by vengeful spirits, black magic, and chilling apparitions. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare to face your deepest fears. Let's begin. Chapter 8: Confronting the Demon Cat.
The sky had just begun to brighten as the monk and Limey awoke, packing efficiently to prepare for their journey. Limey tucked his knife behind his back, and wore on his head a sacred string left by his father. Before leaving, Limey knelt before the Buddha statue, clasped his hands, and murmured a prayer, hoping Buddha would protect them through their upcoming hardships. The monk stood beside him, also with clasped hands, softly reciting sutras to bless Limey. When the shadows of the two men disappeared behind the dense tree canopy, two other people approached Ploy leading, followed by an older woman with vacant eyes staring straight ahead. Ploy looked at her arm where wounds were healing themselves and smiled, thinking, "You dared to injure me like this, you demons will pay double." She turned back, ordered the woman to return to the village, while she silently followed the two, Limey and his master. As they traveled, Limey walked ahead, using his knife to clear the path while chatting with the monk to pass the time. "Where did you come from to reach our village?" "Where I came from? I don't even remember where I came from anymore. Since childhood, I've had neither father nor mother, and have lived a wandering life." The monk's words trailed off with a sigh. Real Thai Horror Story Ep.8, A Rescue Journey Gone Wrong. Terrifying true story. You're similar to me. My mother died when I was born, and my father joined her after I turned 5. The villagers saw me as a bad omen for causing my parents' deaths. The only person who loved and encouraged me was my father. He used to say I would become someone special someday, so I must be stronger. As Limey spoke, he touched the string on his head. The monk nodded. "Ah yes, so where do you plan to go now?" "I have something I need to complete." "Can you tell me what it is?" The monk was silent for a while, took a deep breath and said, "This began more than 10 years ago. I was young then, a hunter." "A hunter? We have many similarities." The monk smiled. "What I hunted wasn't ordinary. This demon cat is one example." Limey seemed to understand something and listened quietly as the monk continued. 10 years ago, I experienced something that has troubled me for many years. It was about 3 female ghosts, mother and daughters. They were legendary demons who ate human intestines to survive. Some of their victims were my 3 nephews, so I vowed revenge. But later, after I killed the mother and one of the children, I met a monk. He made me reconsider this cycle of hatred. At that moment, I shaved my head and began the path of monkhood. And I've been searching for the 2 escaped children. I want to guide them toward Buddha to dissolve the demons in their hearts. "So for more than 10 years you've wandered as a beggar just to find them?" "That's right. If I can't guide them to Buddha, they will certainly become a threat to people." Limey asked nothing more, silently joining the monk's stream of thought. Behind them, Ploy continued to follow. However, to avoid being detected by the monk, she had to maintain a considerable distance. Therefore, she couldn't hear their conversation. How could she know that one of her enemies from the past, Dis, was actually this thin, aging monk? Perhaps due to the harsh years of begging, Dis's appearance had changed dramatically. He looked almost a decade older than his actual age. The two stopped to rest under a boulder. The sun was now directly overhead. Their water containers were empty, and Monk Dis wiped the sweat from his forehead and lamented, "I never expected the journey to be this long. Without you leading the way, even by sunset I might not have reached the destination." Limey smiled without responding. He jumped up on the boulder, reached for some vines in the bushes, cut them, and came back down beside the monk. After processing them, Limey gave half the vines to the monk, and they both wrung them hard, then tilted their heads back to drink the few drops of water that seeped out. Suddenly, the monk turned, extending one hand past Limey, startling him. In the monk's hand was a snake's head. With one glance, as an experienced forest dweller, Limey knew it was venomous. The monk held the snake, pulling it toward himself while saying, "Whether in the forest or anywhere else, you must stay vigilant. Just a small slip can cost you your life immediately." Limey nodded in confusion, but then smiled and said, "Your words are true, but I don't fear wild animals." The monk frowned, not understanding. Limey explained, "Because they won't bite me." With those words, he gently gripped the snake's body and signaled for the monk to let go. Though hesitant, seeing Limey's determined gaze, the monk released his grip. The snake hissed threateningly at its captor. But when Limey raised his hand to stroke its head, the snake became as docile as if they'd known each other for years. It slithered across Limey and disappeared among the dry leaves. "How is this possible?" the monk asked in surprise. "I don't know why either. Not just snakes, but all animals won't harm me. That's why I can stay in the forest as long as I want without fearing being eaten by predators. I call myself a hunter in name only. In reality, I just collect the remains left by predators." The monk nodded. Perhaps Limey's words were completely true. According to the villagers, this forest was very dangerous, yet until now, the two hadn't encountered any dangerous situations. They continued on their way. Suddenly, the monk pulled Limey's arm and said, "Stand still. Something is watching us." The monk's ears seemed to be scanning the surroundings, listening for any movement. Behind them, Ploy saw them stop and also stood still, pressing herself against a tree trunk, thinking, "Have I been discovered already?" All three remained motionless, listening for each other's movements. Suddenly the monk shouted, "Come out." Immediately after, a Bodhi seed shot toward the bushes. The bushes shook violently, accompanied by a loud "moo." A dark figure darted out, landing on a nearby branch. It was a demon cat with yellow-green eyes, looking at the two people below and hissing fiercely. After assessing them for a moment, the cat pounced toward the two. Its claws were ready to tear apart the enemies before it. From a distance, it looked no different than a black panther pouncing on its prey. The monk remained calm, swinging his staff directly at the cat, sending it flying into a tree trunk. But the blow seemed to have no effect. The cat immediately jumped again with extreme speed. The monk was startled by this, quickly pushing Limey aside. Both fell to opposite sides, avoiding the attack. The cat pushed off the opposite branch, jumping back to attack the monk. In its mind, it had already assessed the two opponents. It needed to eliminate the stronger one first. The cat's speed was extremely fast, attacking continuously and causing the monk to stagger as he defended himself. Limey also shouted, rushing forward to slash wildly at the black shadow darting around the monk. Only then did the cat pause its attack, looking at Limey with fury. The monk moved beside Limey and said, "This demon cat's speed is too fast. It must have been in this form for a long time." With those words, the monk cut his finger on Limey's knife. He then smeared a long line of blood on the blade and instructed, "With my blood, the blade will be effective when it strikes." Then the monk pushed Limey aside, sat cross-legged on the ground, one hand clasped before his chest, the other gripping the wooden staff, his mouth murmuring sutras. Seeing its enemy motionless, the cat acted on instinct and pounced again. Suddenly, the monk swung his staff, striking the cat's head with extreme force, causing it to bleed black blood and fall to the ground. The monk's eyes remained tightly closed, his mouth continuously reciting sutras. The monk knew that with the naked eye it was difficult to keep up with the demon cat's speed, so he decided to concentrate his efforts on hearing and sensing to act. Seeing the cat injured, Limey seized the opportunity, rushing forward and slashing repeatedly. Despite its pain, the cat lunged forward, ramming into Limey's stomach while slashing a deep diagonal cut across his chest. A sensation of pain spread throughout his chest. Limey quickly retreated, tearing open his outer garment to reveal the bleeding scratch. He gritted his teeth, took out a bottle of water from his bag, and poured it all over his chest. The cool sensation soothed the spreading burning pain. Limey used the torn piece of clothing to tightly bind his chest. Although it hurt, it was better than letting the wound fester, and it would slow the bleeding. After treating his wound, Limey gripped his knife again, eyes fixed on the cat. By now, it was also feeling the pain, staggering while watching its enemies. Suddenly, it leaped powerfully onto a nearby branch, then continued jumping to other branches, forming a circle around the two, its mouth continuously emitting a howling sound. Limey felt some fear at the cat's speed. Despite continuously turning to track it, he couldn't keep up with the black shadow. Moreover, his head was spinning from trying to follow it. Sensing a weakness, the cat changed direction, pouncing toward the two, its mouth baring teeth triumphantly. Its front paws were aimed at Limey's neck veins. Just one strike would certainly kill him. When the claws were only a hand's width from Limey's neck, a shadow flashed by, striking the cat's face, causing it to spurt black blood and roll on the ground. It was the head of the monk's staff, who was still sitting cross-legged with eyes closed. The cat's body trembled, continuously leaking black blood that soaked into the ground. It no longer had the strength to stand, only lying on the ground breathing weakly. Seeing this, Limey eagerly wanted to move forward to finish off the demon cat. At this moment, the monk finally spoke, "Be careful." Limey was startled and stopped. Sensing something, he looked up at the dense canopy. Two yellow-green glowing eyes had appeared, fixed intently on them. Then 4, 6, 8, many more glowing spots also appeared, causing Limey to fearfully step back. He turned to look in all 4 directions. In the tree canopies, there were glowing spots. What were they?